Daniel James. I play guitar and sing in Leopold in his fiction.
I'm chained to the resistance of your days. Instead, I dream of you along the way.
Hi there, I'm Mike Forts and welcome back to Parlour to Parlour. This is our third week in a row here in San Francisco, but what can I say? We're a very musical town, and I want to be sure you get an ample dose of some of our finest before we venture beyond the Bay Area bubble. And this next artist we're going to meet definitely has the look for San Francisco. He's long-haired, laid back, and likes to wear cool-looking hats when the mood is right. His name is Daniel James, and the band he fronts, a trio by the name of Leopold and his Fiction, draws upon the raw blues-based rock of James's hometown of Detroit. I first saw Leopold on the same bill as another equally exciting band we'll be meeting a bit later on in the series. And I never quite forgot when I first saw Leopold how they totally outdid Jack White's shtick and actually reminded me a lot of the early 70s band Cactus, in my mind anyway.
People say we sound like the White Stripes a lot. I think that's because we come from similar. We're both from Detroit. We're relatively the same age. I mean, he's got a lot of years on me. At the same time, we grew up in the same atmosphere. And what fascinates me about him is everything that he's doing with the production. And like that Loretta Lynn album, when that came out, it blew my mind. The stripped down two-piece definitely works for a lot of people. It worked for us for a while. But then when you start adding elements, as he did with the Raconteurs, it brings a whole new light onto the same creative power.
Working in the music industry gave Daniel the impetus to try putting together his own band, and here he talks about that experience and also draws a line for us from his experiences to the name of his band.
I started as an intern because I was part of the recording program that I was going to. They wanted you to be involved with the music industry as much as possible, and I worked there for a while. I'd say at least a year or a year and a half.
Is that down in LA?
No, it was up here. It was up here. They had a branch on Folsom and 5th. I was really confused at that time. It's like just finished one degree and was not ready to pursue being a starving writer, so I decided to be a starving musician instead. And that was a big change. I mean, that company is so big, it kind of just, it's discouraging in one way, and it's also obviously really inspiring in another way. In some creepy way, it's inspiring. Because I mean, literally, it was like just doing the dirty work, running here, running there, just not really doing anything associated with music for the first 6 months, and then finally got to start working with some of these artists. It was for their artist development and their A&R department, and so they'd have us go with them pretty much just do whatever they needed us to do, and even if it was like getting water for these big artists and talking to them a little bit. Like the Hives were on there, I think they're still on Universal, but
I think so.
Went to their show at the Warfield, and that was something else. So I was backstage with the Hives and getting them water, and they're not English-speaking natives, so they were all talking amongst each other, and I got them water. And Howlin' Pete, is that the lead singer's name?
I think so, yeah.
I think so too. And so I got him a water, and he seemed really nice, but kind of not wanting to be bothered. But then on stage, I was sitting, like, it was front row at the Warfield, and we got there really early, so I was standing out there, and they do this little thing where they stop the whole show, and they're all like mechanical robots, and they just stop completely. He just like broke out of his character and came over, and he's like, "Hey, thank you," and I was like, "Well, that's crazy. Why are you thanking me in the middle?" That was I felt like I was on stage and my pants fell down or something like that, because everyone's looking at me, the whole crowd's silent, and it was odd. But you get used to that once you're on stage all the time, I guess. But that was the first moment of thousands of people staring. Hopefully that happens real soon again. But all the stories, every song I feel like is a different chapter of a book. I mean, that's how I started even writing. I was a fiction writer that kind of came to a writer's block, and instead of subjecting myself to that writer's block, I decided to immerse myself in the other things I was doing in life. Like, I've always played guitar, and when the day came, fiction wasn't doing it, I kind of tried to boil the fiction down into poetry, and that, to me, is 2 and 2 makes 4. The 4 being the song. Poetry, fiction equals song. And luckily I played guitar for a while, and it was easy just to hear the melodies and the songs go through my head. And then after graduating, I went to recording school, or school of recording at San Francisco State. So then it just all came together. It all made sense. Like, well, I'm playing and singing and this, why don't I just put it down on tape? And it worked out. Next thing you knew, I had a drummer and a bass player, and we were playing shows all the time. Lost the bass player, so it was just me and the drummer for 4 years, 5 years, and we did our best to do exactly what we were doing. And on that note, Ben Cook, who is the former drummer of Leopold, he recently got his PhD, and he's pursuing that. Yeah, in electrical engineering, so we're all really proud of him. And yeah, he's doing his thing, and we're doing ours, and everyone's happy now, and it's really cool. He's really proud of this album too, so I mean, that was pretty important for the 2 of us to get this album out before any changes were made. And now the 3 of us in the new group are really excited for this 3rd album.
A big appeal of Leopold's music for me is where Daniel gets his inspiration. We probably could have spent the whole time just talking about 2 of these inspirational figures, who happen to be a couple of my favorites, if I didn't have 2 other shoots to get to that day.
Johnny Cash was really a big influence, especially on the first song, One for Me to Find.
I've got these outlaws chasing me, and these lawmen won't leave me be. It's hard to make amends with myself and my dead friends.
If I go through a drought of creativity, or if I'm on the road all the time, just don't have time to write, I just got Bob Dylan's Bringing It All Back Home, and I mean, you hear most of those songs. I mean, when you listen to Dylan, those are the songs you're hearing, but in the context of an album, there's ones that just didn't make the cut for the radio or whatnot. And Bob Dylan's 115th or 151st Dream, do you know, is that the title of the track?
I think it's 115.
115 is seriously my favorite song ever, and that song alone catapulted me into this whole new realm of songwriting. It's all intermixed with so much detail, and it's so long. It's such a long story, and that's really important to utilize. I mean, you don't have to cut the story short, and that's the thing. Like, most of the songs that we've been working on, the first 2 albums are 4 minutes and under, and especially close to 2.5 minutes. I think that's a key number, and mostly because the stories would be that long, but you boil them down, and then you listen to Dylan, and it's okay to ramble, and most of the time it's not really rambling, it's just really long, kind of like I'm doing right now.
Well, after all that, it was inevitable that I would ask Daniel to play Ain't No Surprise for us, and when you hear it in the performance video, you'll know exactly why. And don't forget to check the downloads for Leopold's heavier blues side, too. Thanks for hanging with us, and I'll see you next week when we head across the bay to Oakland to meet a couple of old friends who named their band after an obscure reference to one of my favorite movies. Enjoy.
The bell of the ocean come with unwritten news that a heart and a mind was so easily confused about the walk and the words and all of the things that she knew. It was just about everything she considered an idea. At the gates of your oh so pretty intellectually stay, your inquiries still vanish before they congregate. Called all night for a piece of your life, held behind mirrors on the shed with the mice in your castle.